Yeah.
How much?
Google pays. Well, my dividend was about $100 for the quarter, so not a lot. But what do they pay? Like 20 cents or something? I forget. I'll check my app.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, I'm pretty sure we're live at this point. So welcome everybody to Rocket Lab Weekly episode 127. Today we have Scotto with us all the way from Canada and Real Matt Money. And yeah, how's everyone doing this week?
Good. I feel like I'm finally catching up on all the earnings releases from 2 weeks ago now.
Awesome. And you're going all in on EOS?
Yeah, man. I kind of mentioned it like half joking. It was during the Rocket Labs Q4 stream where I'm like, I don't understand the sell-off. And like, I've spent the whole week, digging into EOS and, prepping that video that I posted yesterday. And I'm just like, I just don't see it. I don't understand the discrepancy. And it's one of those things I'm just trusting I was going to say gut, but like my research. I'm just kind of going more with the numbers than anything. And it's I don't know. It reminds me a lot of like Redwire where, you have a bad quarter and, suddenly everyone, the stock goes down and suddenly everyone's like, everyone needs to be in jail or whatever. And I'm just kind of like, but was the quarter actually that bad? Because it didn't seem that bad. And yeah, so long story short, ended up. Oh, and actually one thing since the video, in case you guys might have seen this, one thing not mentioned in the video is I actually bought a bunch more EOS yesterday before market close. So the share count increase at the end is not even reflective of what's in the video. So maybe against my better judgment, but I don't know. EOS makes a lot more sense here than it did 2 weeks ago. So trust in that.
I mean, when you see an opportunity, you got to put the chips on the table. That's how money is made.
Yeah.
EOS Weekly.
EOS Weekly, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. And you, Matt, people are saying that you're a Rocket Lab bear now because you don't have your glasses. Your future is not that bright anymore. I saw this comment.
Hugely bearish. Complete 180. Yeah. No, not exactly sure why people would think that, but yeah, living the dream. Bought more. Did I buy more recently? When was the last time I bought? But if not, it's the 14th. So on the 15th, I always have a scheduled buy. So because it's on the weekend, it might wait till Monday. But let's just see if I bought this past weekend or this past week, or if I bought. I'm buying on Monday. One of the two is happening. So. What about you, Vince?
Yeah, doing good. I'm very busy with work. I'm working on increasing my income. We're setting up 8 new Airbnbs. So I will have like 16 in one place. Very soon is finishing, ready for the summer season. And then, I have 3 more in, so I will have very soon 19 Airbnbs in total that we are managing as it's different setups, but I'm very bullish on the summer.
Yep, as expected. Bought yesterday. So awesome.
Nice. Cool. So I think we can
18. That's insane. 18 Airbnbs. Wow, I'm just adjusting that. That's a lot.
19. But
everyone counts. Everyone counts.
It is. Look, it's like when I go into my Yale app, I don't know if I can show it. I myself got shocked. That's the smart lock, and then it's like when I can't. Yeah, and then this is like the locks that we like control with the app. It's nuts. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we can go into Rocket Lab news this week. Wasn't like the most news this week, but we still got some pretty good ones. So there's a new launch date set for Synspective. It's going to be on the 20th of March. I believe it misses Matt's, I don't know what you want to call it. Like you are tracking the trailing 12 months rocket launches, and we were up at 23. If we would have launched until March 10th, we would be up to 24 trailing 12-month launches. We need to come up with a name for this. So we're gonna
annual cadence.
Annual cadence, exactly. You see, simplicity is always the answer. So yeah, I don't know what more there is to say about this. Do you guys have anything more to say about this upcoming launch?
No, I mean, it's Synspective's 8th launch with Rocket Lab. I think they have 19 left past this, so I think that takes us out to 2030. One thing that I did want to point out during the PR for this that I found interesting was that they mentioned to be Synspective's sole launch provider. Actually, I'll just read the whole thing. So this is what I have. No, actually, I'll read it straight from the source. So they mentioned that Rocket Lab has been the sole launch provider for Synspective's constellation since 2020, with another 19 missions booked to deliver the rest of their constellation to orbit before 2030. The reason that I thought this was interesting is because I was under the impression that SpaceX launched for them in Q4. Not sure if that didn't happen or if that got pushed back or just canceled outright, but I know that there was as of middle of last year, there was a SpaceX launch with Synspective on board. So I'm not sure what happened to that, but for whatever reason, they're just sticking exclusively with Rocket Lab. So that's cool to see as a Rocket Lab investor.
Yeah, these are the things when you're like, damn, I wish I could be a fly on the wall and know why they canceled SpaceX and went to only Rocket Lab. Probably it's the scheduling or the orbit and yeah, because apparently when we spoke with Adam Spice and Sir Peter Beck about this, if you're put in the wrong orbit, it's possible for you to change orbits. It just takes quite some months. Mm-hmm. And maybe as a small satellite company, you don't want to wait those months because time is money. Mm-hmm. People are complaining, Scotto, that your chat.
I was just going to say, I don't even know how to turn off chat. I didn't know that was an option. So my apologies. I don't know why it's off or how to change any of that. But
yeah, maybe you go into your live stream console and there's a toggle on and off.
Okay, I'll take a look. I don't know.
Maybe just by accident, maybe.
Oh, hold on. It says made for kids. I'm not sure why that's selected.
Oh, yeah.
Could be definitely not made for kids. Maybe that'll change it.
Kids get invested early these days. Yeah. So
yeah. Okay, guys. So now you can flood Scotto with comments and memberships and super chats and anything you want. Now it's available. Cool. So we finished that, right? No more comments regarding the next launch.
No. Yeah, this looks like a great partnership. Hope to see it continue. Mm-hmm. More than 19 or 18 launches. Hope it continues into the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s.
But by the way, how cool is this fairing? I never paid much attention to it until the latest Haze launch, where they showed that it's the biggest Rocket Lab fairing, and I'm like, do they custom make fairings? And then now when I was looking at this, I'm like, damn, the satellite is halfway out of the fairing. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. All right, so the next one is the Mars Sample Return. The MTN, the Mars Telecommunication Network. Rocket Lab posted a new video where they were reusing some parts of old videos. So I just want to play it for you guys, and then we talk. Is there sound?
The Mars Telecommunication Orbiter is about providing broad support for future science programs, but most importantly, MTO is about taking the first step towards expanding human exploration to Mars by providing communications and navigation support, the kind of high reliability, persistent communications required when we send humans. So to do a mission like MTO, you need a few ingredients. You need a launch vehicle, you need spacecraft, you need payload technology, and you need all the ground support to operate and sustain the mission over time. These are the kind of missions that we were built for. Our experience with Mars missions like the Mars Escapade demonstrates an ability to execute on these challenging programs. Our whole company was set up for affordable planetary science. That's been our strategic North Star from the beginning. Started early with the capstone mission to the moon. demonstrated an ability to do high delta V missions and really challenging operations in deep space. And so that was really the program that forged in fire the capability that we then applied to the Escapade program. The Escapade mission has basically demonstrated the mission model of affordable planetary science. We have 2 spacecraft, happy and healthy, in their Lagrange orbit, waiting for the Mars escape asymptote to come into alignment and continue on to Mars. Rocket Lab's vertical integration is really one of the key ingredients on our ability to not only move quickly and affordably, but to meet challenging mission requirements. Eliminating the organizational interfaces between the launch vehicle and the rocket, between the payload and the satellite, and then of course relying on our manufacturing scale is really critical to being able to commit to the ambitious schedule that MTO demands. Getting this program moving and selecting a partner like Rocket Lab that has high confidence in execution allows the agency to move on to the next challenge.
Cool video. Did you guys catch that he said that such a program requires like integration with the launch vehicle, and then they put like a Neutron picture in it?
No, that was cool.
Yeah. So do you guys think that if they get this, I'm actually going to say when Rocket Lab gets this contract, like it will be like launched on Neutron, or that will be like part of the program, or Neutron will just be one of the possible launch vehicles?
Probably one of the possible vehicles is my bet. Like I'd be willing to bet that it'll be I think like MDA and both SDA were like, where it's like the satellites are awarded before, and then you worry about the launch kind of closer to the date. That's how I'd imagine it to go.
No, I imagine the same. I think you'll have separate contracts, one for the people actually developing the satellites, because I think at this point the launch actually is rather frequent, and so once you kind of have it up and ready, I think it's going to be awarded separately, kind of like what you're seeing with the tranche missions, right? Tranche 2 was awarded to multiple, but then I think Rocket Lab's in a unique position where they have both launch and space systems capability versus some of these other folks don't. And so I think that you'll have to almost separate them, because otherwise then you'll be unruly in providing, say, contracts to specify that you might potentially get sued. I would say you're opening yourself up to getting sued because you're saying, oh, well, they just chose Rocket Lab because they could launch and they can create space systems. And I would anticipate the same would happen as if they did the same with say, a SpaceX.
What do you guys think the odds are that the satellites in the launch are intentionally broken up? Kind of like what you see where it's like only a certain amount of launches can go to SpaceX, you know, so that they're not taking the whole market. What do you think the odds of that are?
That is a good question. I mean, I'm going to be really pragmatic on this. And I think that they, like, for Rocket Lab to have a good chance, like it would have to be broken up, because like currently, if let's say the Mars, the MTO gets awarded in the next 3 months, like Rocket Lab technically doesn't have a working Neutron, right? So I think it makes their proposal stronger to say that like the MTO will cost this much, and then we will need to launch it on a vehicle, and then we would like to also bid for the launch, but that's like later down the line. Yeah. Okay, good. We go over to the next one. And they kind of actually mentioned this on the video. So there is a new milestone with the Escapade mission. This was a very nice tweet to see. So the commissioning is now officially complete, which means that all of the systems of the spacecraft is operational, and yeah, it has been put into action, and the spacecraft is still fully healthy. So that means that Rocket Lab has delivered two flawless spacecrafts that are going to Mars, and I think this bodes really well for, you know, the MTO award.
100%.
I don't know if you guys have any comments on this one.
No, just like you said, Vince. It really it's just a testament to Rocket Lab's capability. You know, now, 'cause not only do they have the capstone under the belt, but now they have, you know, these 2 satellites on the way as well. So it's just one more reason to hire them on for the next job.
Exactly. Cool. So here's a very interesting one. So there was a new German article that came out, and it says that according to Rheinmetall CEO Pepperger, probably that's how you say it, has not submitted a bid for Mynaric, the company specializing in laser communication, which is to be sold to the USA. It's so funny that it's like it's being sold to Donald Trump. However, the technology provided by Mynaric can still be used. Added. So this basically means that the German authorities that have yet to decide on Rocket Lab's acquisition, their choices are to let the company go bankrupt or let Rocket Lab take over the company. And if you ask me, I kind of know what their choice is going to be. And they are expected to make this decision in by the end of March. So that is in 2 weeks. So this transaction or acquisition should close very soon.
Yeah, I just saw a lot of people. This goes back to like when people were talking about stage 1 being third party, not third party. I saw a lot of people jumping on this like, oh my God, we're losing the Mynaric deal, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I personally would just always just caution people to keep an even head sometimes with some of these things. And I think in reality, while it may have been something that was discussed, Sir Peter Beck probably said it best, like, don't believe everything that you see in the news. A lot of times what you're starting to see now more than ever, this isn't just Rocket Lab specific, but this is just in general, you're seeing people, I don't want to say fearmonger, but try to get clicks on certain things. Vince is really good about this with his YouTube videos and his live stream thumbnails. But yeah, that's something that I, dislike a little bit about the new social media aspect of what we do, is that people are all fighting for individual clicks, and sometimes they let kind of morality fly out the window. And so, maybe there was a real deal that was trying to be put together by Rheinmetall, but I never really felt like it had a lot of oomph to it. And it seemed like kind of just out of nowhere. I feel like if that was the case, as soon as Rocket Lab would have put a bid in, almost over a year ago, then you would have seen Rheinmetall probably act faster, not wait until it's, almost done to be closed before raising their hand. So it just kind of seemed a little bit of out of place. So anyway, just some thoughts there.
And I might be misunderstanding, but like, are these recent slowdowns with Rheinmetall, is this maybe more out of a concern that the German technology is going to be put into the United States and then like gate kept? Because like my take on what's in front of us now is like, it almost sounds more like they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to still have access to that. Is that correct, or am I reading that wrong?
I think it's just the EU guys. That's what I've been saying, that these delays is because like if you read this article, it was already saying that 90% of Mynaric sales was to the US to begin with. So in a way, like, this technology was being exported. And I think that for Rheinmetall, like what doesn't make sense for them is, if you guys remember, so even Sir Peter Beck said that Mynaric had the best-in-class laser product, but they sucked at running their business. So if another company takes them over who doesn't have the Rocket Lab experience on tuck-in acquisitions and scaling production, then you're putting on a huge burden. And that's kind of the point on this article, that they realized that, yeah, we can just buy their products. We don't have to buy the company, because then you don't have to deal with the headache of trying to make sense of this company. So I think that is also in like why Rheinmetall never bid for the company.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool. All right, we go to the next one. So Rocket Lab has won a totally market-moving contract from the Missile Defense Agency. This contract was a value of $500, and yeah, I to be honest, I was hoping that you guys know more about this, because apparently this $500 is an initial order that is a mandatory administrative onboarding for the Scalable Homeland Innovative Enterprise Layer Defense, which is SHIELD, which is a total 151 billion 10-year multiple award indefinite date and indefinite quantity order. But I have no clue how much of that would. So basically, the way I understand it is, so Rocket Lab is going to be one of the recipients of this award from SHIELD, but we don't know how much and when. But I was hoping that you guys maybe know more about this than I do.
No, I mean, we've kind of spoken about this one in the past, where SHIELD seems really, really big until you kind of factor in the number of companies and then the number of years. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, cool. Like, you know, was that like 500? Did they miss a few zeros? But no, that's just 500. But yeah, it's SHIELD isn't going to be, I think SHIELD won't be like super massive, like at face value, but I think that a few companies can kind of get an oversized piece of that pie. Rocket Lab, I think, is set up to be one of those outsized companies for this. So yeah, just the onboarding for probably what's going to be, you know, several orders over the next few years for sure.
Yeah, well said. Nothing else I can add there.
It's funny that there's a few contracts now that is like, you know, you don't know how to think with it. Like this Kratos is another one that they got an extra $1.5 billion to accelerate haste testing or like hypersonic testing. And then we know that Rocket Lab is one of the companies that one of their partners, but we have no clue out of the 1.5 billion, like how much is going to Rocket Lab, you know? And this is also one of those that is like, yeah, 151 billion looks like an insanely huge number, but are we getting 1%, 0.1%? Are we getting 10%? Yeah. Well, $500. That's
to start.
That's for sure. Exactly. And it's actually, when I first saw it, I was like, is this like thousands, millions?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
where is the little star where they, and I'm like, no, it's $500. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely information out there about who else was awarded. Because I mean, if it was able to be scraped and seen that Rocket Lab won, then I'm sure others were also paid. So
yeah. I don't have those other companies on my radar, so I don't know. But yeah, maybe I can research it after the show. Who else got invited? Because yeah, then we could play with the numbers a little bit and see who is likely to win how much. It's a good point, actually.
But I mean, it's 151 billion over 10 years, so could be 15 billion a year. So it depends on how many other people were awarded, and curious to see. I anticipate it's not going to be the entirety, so there's going to be different segments as well. So I don't know if that 151 billion, part of it's going to be launch, part of it's going to be satellites, or if it's all satellites and then there's a separate launch. I don't know. So
yeah. All right. There is a new what is it called? There's a new Form 4 that has been submitted, and a new Rocket Lab director has decreased their share count by 32%. So that director was Merlin Saintiel. And yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about this, but I like, for example, the Shift 4, like every director is like increasing their share count. I'd love to see that one more. So this is definitely like not a bullish sign, but not necessarily a bearish sign either.
Yeah, I don't think this one is like something worth worrying about, really. Like Merlin St. Hill has been there for, I don't have the exact date, but like 3 years, give or take. So I'd imagine that Rocket Lab refreshes their board every 3 to 5 years, give or take, anyways. And given her approximate age, it's kind of like, time to look towards the horizon, we'll say, and maybe she's not going to be at Rocket Lab forever, as is probably best for the company, arguably, like not to just have a stagnant board. It's probably best that you kind of freshen it up every once in a while. So that's probably all we're seeing right here, is just somebody who's kind of later into their career, came upon a very significant uptick in their in one of their positions, and is looking to kind of keep that in the family looking forward.
Yeah,
kind of thinking of a legacy.
I had the opportunity to talk to Marlene in August when we were at LC3, and she has her fingers in a lot of pies. So I could understand if she comes to a close, but this was, out of the recent transactions, the only one that was open market. So the rest that we were kind of done earlier this month that we talked about last week were all scheduled, it seemed like. So this one is a little bit different. There was, as far as I'm aware, there weren't any scheduled ones from Marlene. So yeah,
there was, because we're on the topic, included in that 33% is a share exchange in January 13th. So essentially what that was, and I roughly understand it. I'll just read it here. It says that she parted with 96,000, or is that, sorry, let me just double check. We'll call it 100,000 shares roughly. But the note at the bottom says the reporting person contributed shares at the price to an exchange fund in exchange for shares of the exchange fund.
Huh.
So it's not, I don't know, maybe you guys can explain that a little bit better, but it's like, she's kind of, what I would imagine is like a quick way to say it is diversifying, where it's just like, hey, I have Hello Rocket Lab shares. I'll give you some of these shares at a reasonable price, and you can kind of stabilize my portfolio, kind of an idea.
I wonder if that's like an ability to avoid taxes as well.
Could be. That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
I don't know. I'm just talking out here, guys. I don't know if that.
Doesn't it sound like it's her own holding company or trust or whatever, that you like put the shares like into the trust, and then the trust grows, and then you get more shares?
Yeah, what's strange is it doesn't even mention a fund or anything. Like a lot of times with the directors, they'll be associated with something else and they'll say, but this one, it's just the note at the bottom just says unexchanged fund. So not sure where, but yeah.
Okay. Interesting. By the way, I saw a tweet. I think it was Miss Iglesias who tweeted that the yearly annual shareholder meeting was 100 days earlier than last year, and she was speculating if there is any significance to that, and maybe it has to do with the Mynaric acquisition, or like new board members need to be added. I didn't have any like concrete thing on this, so I thought I'd just mention it and check if you guys have heard or what you guys think about this.
I just saw that in passing as well. It's definitely interesting, and I'm not sure if last year's. I'd be almost more curious to see the date of the year of the meeting of the year prior to that. Like, was last year's really late, or was this year's like 100 days earlier than the last 2 or 3 or whatever? But
yeah, because it sounds extreme. Like because normally like you have laws that, okay, like your year end is December 31st, and then within a certain amount of time, like you have to have the shareholder meeting. And like for example, in Sweden, you can have it like max 6 months out from the like where your year closes. And I mean 6 months is like 180 days, and here like to move it 100 days earlier, that's a big move. Okay, but we don't know more about that. Cool. That was all the Rocket Lab news that I had, but there is something here that is adjacent to Rocket Lab. So Firefly successfully launched their Alpha Flight 7. Stairway to 7 was the name of their mission. And that means that there is a new launch provider on the block that is launching, new small launch provider on the block that is launching 1,000 kilogram payloads. So in terms of Rocket Lab, like, are we going to lose out on customers now because they flock over to Alpha, or how do you guys think this affects us? And congratulations to the Firefly team.
Yeah, huge congratulations. I'm wondering, like, I don't know. I kind of like mixed thoughts about this because, you know, if this was a non-successful launch, I mean, you could just look to Firefly's backlog and be like, yeah, let's pull some of that over for Rocket Lab. But I mean, even if you do look at their backlog, it's like those customers have been waiting for a very long time, some of them, like upwards of 5 years. And I wonder, like, how many of those are kind of getting like, okay, like we got to get moving. And I don't want to just take Firefly's win and kind of be like, okay, but hurry up, like, you know, kind of almost, you know, muddy the water or whatever you want to call that. But they really do. Or I'll say it this way. I'm really looking forward to Firefly increasing their cadence, because between the last few launches has just really needed improvement. And, you know, and even with their backlog, even if they like cut their time between launches in half, it's still a very, very long time to be waiting. So looking forward to seeing them increase their cadence. And I think they will. This last Firefly Alpha was the last like block 1, or however you want to call that. They're referencing the next Firefly to launch, or the next Alpha to launch, and going forward, or going to be an upgraded version called Block 2. So maybe that's going to help. Maybe they have like built-in cadence for the next generation of the rocket, which I think is a safe assumption to make. But
when I read that news, I was like, why would you not fly the Block 2 on this test? Because isn't it weird that you test this and then immediately you're changing to Block 2, which is untested?
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not even sure what all is different. I think it's like, it's a little bit longer, and I'm not sure if it was for this one or for the next launches, but they're also expecting to launch at like a lower, how do I say, like it's at a lesser degree, like a less of a harsh angle of attack, if you will. So I'm not sure if that's exclusive to Block 2 or what all is different, but yeah.
Okay. Cool. So basically, your opinion is that until they reach cadence, it's nothing to worry about for Rocket Lab.
I mean, I don't think it's for Rocket Lab to worry about either way. Like even if they do, like, you know, turn into an Electron, like going from here, like that's just going to spur competition, and I think Rocket Lab needs some. Like not even just like, not saying they're like getting stagnant or anything, but I just mean like just across the board. Like, I guess I shouldn't say Rocket Lab, but the small launch vehicle sector could use competition, you know, just to kind of keep Rocket Lab on their toes, keep things fresh, and keep things moving forward.
Yeah. I see that somebody is collecting the previous shareholder meeting dates.
Oh, good. I started looking at that and then I got distracted.
Yeah.
Okay.
August 27, June 12, June 13th, June 23. So it has always been in June.
Except for the last one was, oh, sorry.
Last year, August. Yeah, so it looks like just the 2025 was quite like 2 months late.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's more like a reversion back to like mid-year than.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. And then we go over to the next news, which just going to mention it, and then we talk a little bit about the SpaceX IPO. So Blue Origin had a stock option plan that basically was issued in 2016, and it was a 10-year stock option plan, and it was only exercisable in case of a liquidity event or a new investor coming in. And none of those two happened. So basically all the employee stock options expired worthless. And some employees were not happy about it. And then Eric Berger wrote this article where he detailed how they currently don't have a stock option. And then within, I think, 1 hour of this article being posted, the CEO of Blue Origin posted on Twitter that they're going to have a new stock option plan for employees. And it's pretty crazy how much of a difference it makes. Like the article says that if you were two engineer buddies who graduated and one of you, like you were both like very, very good at what you did, and one of you went to Blue Origin and the other one went to SpaceX, the one that went to SpaceX might be 100 millionaire from SpaceX stock options, doing the same work that the other guy at Blue Origin is basically just having nothing to show for. So it's a very first world problem. I don't have this problem at my current workplace. I think Matt has this first world problem with the stock options. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, how frustrating it is or not frustrating with stock options.
I mean, it's always something you take into consideration, but you don't know the full context. Like this could be something where, yes, the previous one expired, but I get, there could be an opportunity when they distribute the new one that they get made whole on some of that, if not partly some of that. So you can't take this for black and white. There's probably a gray zone in the middle. And then what's going to be reported by the employees is going to be the one side. What's going to be exported by put out into the world is going to be, on the other side is going to be from the company, and it's likely going to be somewhere in the middle. So I would not be surprised if they end up coming back and saying, okay, you still get some portion of the company. Maybe this isn't as much as originally. But I don't know. It could maybe it is that black and white. But I don't know. Amazon gives out shares all the time. They're not afraid of it. So I'd be surprised if Bezos is really trying to be that stingy with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I do think that they're going to revive, like those options will not go missing. I think the bigger problem with Blue Origin is that there's not like a planned liquidity event, and SpaceX has a two times a year liquidity event, like for employees, where outside investors can buy the employee shares. And basically, like if there's no trading, Blue Origin doesn't really have a valuation, and maybe that's by design. Like maybe Jeff Bezos doesn't want, newspaper articles that the rocket is delayed and the valuation is down. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's going to be. I like the point of the article is that the space industry is so competitive that they will probably not be able to keep employees or attract talent if they don't have a competitive stock options program for employees, and I think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So we go to the last news of the day, and that is that SpaceX IPO seems to be around the corner, and both the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500 are bending their rules to make sure that SpaceX can be included in these indexes as soon as possible. And that piece of news is very interesting because I don't understand who makes money on this, or why is it good to speed run a company into an index when you have had very clear-cut rules that has been followed for decades at this point. Like, why would you want to change it to include SpaceX? And so I'm hoping you guys are smarter on this than me.
Who's Sawyer Merritt, and why is he reporting this and not somebody else?
He's like a well-known in the Tesla community, or that Elon Musk empire.
He's like, do you know like this Mario Nawfal? Or I mean, it's basically a news account, and he reports on world events and a lot of Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX news. But I have seen other articles also saying that the NASDAQ 100 has had like board meetings to change their rules, and apparently like SpaceX said that they would only list on the NASDAQ if they can get included into the index, and then they were like bending this rule, and then I'm like, do they make extra money on this, or do they get like commissions on like the investments that is going into? I couldn't understand, because I understand from SpaceX the like if you get included in the indexes, then like they buy up the float, right? Like, so your IPO is even more successful than it would be. But for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100, I don't see what they get out of this.
I'm not too sure either. Like I'd imagine there is some sort of like, you know, money that finds its way into pockets along the way, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I guess is that if maybe SpaceX doesn't list on the NASDAQ and they get listed on the New York Stock Exchange, that like then the NASDAQ like loses prestige or something.
Maybe.
So
yeah, that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess something like this.
Interesting.
Cool.
Neither SpaceX or Standard & Poor's seem to have commented, but yeah, I'm seeing it on multiple sites. But a lot of the sites seem to be just copy and paste, and then I have experience with that when pretty much one person writes an article, a bunch of people just copy and paste and give credit to the other person. So who knows? I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah. So guys, what are we thinking about the SpaceX IPO and Rocket Lab? Because at one point I thought that it will give a huge boost to the stock, and it feels like the SpaceX IPO is happening in June, like sooner than we expected, and it feels like Rocket Lab stock is just like the rest of the stock market and is in a not really moving right now, not mooning at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely going to shake things up for the short term at least. Just the very fact that, like, you know, especially if what Sawyer and that community are kind of echoing is like, if it is the case that all these funds have to start immediately pouring billions, it's gonna kind of become like a race in, and it's gonna kind of artificially accelerate SpaceX's share price, in my opinion, anyways. And that money is going to have to come from somewhere. So I'm kind of like, part of me is wondering if it will kind of cause an artificial suppression of the rest of the market, just to kind of compensate for, you know, 1.5 or 1.75 trillion dollar company, like just kind of coming out of nowhere. But then another part of me is like, well, if and granted, this is like backwards looking, but if the market does just simplify, like, okay, $1.75 billion market cap, $15 billion in revenue, and just do that quick math, well, that's a price to sales of I'll call it 120. And then if you look at Rocket Lab, and, you know, you could argue that Rocket Lab's expensive, but if you look at SpaceX, Rocket Lab's not too bad. And I mean, granted, the margins are going to be very different, right? Because you have Starlink attached in there as well, which is very, very high margin revenue, but still, I think a lot of folks are going to just simply just compare the price to sales and determine that, like, okay, Rocket Lab's cheap and Redwire's cheap and all these other space companies are cheap, or, you know, whatever. And same thing, like, even if it is not even just like a 1-for-1 comparison, kind of like what we're doing here with the price to sales, it could just simply be like, oh, it came to the market $100 a share, and then everybody raced to pool in, and suddenly it's $250. I just missed the bus. Where's the next one? It's, you know, Rocket Lab sitting there idling, and, well, on board they come, I guess. I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me either way in the short term, but I think medium to long term, it's just going to do nothing but benefit the overall space economy. But I want to hear what you guys think.
I am a bit surprised, as I said, that there's not more of a run up anticipating the IPO. But it's not saying that it will not happen, but I'm just a bit surprised.
Mhm.
Do you know how much they're trying to actually get? 50 billion?
50 billion. Yeah, I heard 40, 50 billion.
Yeah, so I mean, it's only like 2-3% of the company. I mean, I guess it really just depends on who's allowed to trade and when. I think you might initially see, because it's only going to be an allotment of 3% of the folks being able to purchase in from the public markets, and the rest is going to be held by people that previously owned the stock or what have you. I think initially you'll likely see the stock run up after the 1.75 billion trillion IPO, if that's what they value it at. But I don't think it'll sustain any sort of ability for people to sell out. I think people will sell a large portion of it, and I don't know if they'll have enough people that will be able to purchase $1.75 trillion worth, or even a fraction of $1.75 trillion worth of volume. I think that's just extravagant. So I think it's going to end up playing against them a little bit, being valued at 1.75 trillion. But I think even still, you'll see Rocket Lab, I think, very volatile during the time. Just thought, because some people did buy into Rocket Lab because that was the investment vehicle that they could buy into instead of something like a SpaceX. And I personally was not that way. I personally invested in Rocket Lab because it was Rocket Lab, not because of the SpaceX comparison, although it was always nice to kind of use it as a comparison to see how cheaply valued or overvalued Rocket Lab has gotten comparatively to previous quarters or what have you, when kind of comparing it to say a SpaceX. So I think it's just going to be tough. 1.75 trillion is a lot of money, and there's going to be a lot of people trying to get out and trade hands. Some people that have made hundreds of millions of dollars likely from buying into the stock. So it'll definitely be an interesting time. And if it does say decline, I think that'll be a drag on other companies like the Rocket Labs and ASTSs of the world. So I think it's right now is, unless there's a massive run up in stock in the other space stocks, I think it's going to be tough for SpaceX to hold its value.
Do you think, Matt, in the short term it's going to rip? Like generally, that's kind of been the theme with space stocks, where they come to market, rip, and then completely bomb. Do you think it's going to take on that same pattern?
I think yes, because I know it sounds very like I'm flip-flopping, guys, but I have a thought process around this. Is there's only going to be 2 to 3% of the stock that's going to be publicly available at the beginning for people to purchase. And a lot of that is likely going to be purchased by banks. And so I think you'll have a lot of people wanting to buy in because it's SpaceX, right? And so because you'll only have, say, 2 to 3% kind of initially there, I'm not exactly sure how much of the 1.75 trillion is going to be liquid initially. And that's where I'm kind of scratching my head. But I do know that a lot of times there's 6 month lockups for some of these things. So if a lot, and this is where it kind of gets ambiguous for me, if there's a lot of that 1.75 trillion that can trade on day one, I don't think the stock is going to go very well in terms of an IPO. But if there's a lot of it that is locked up, and say you only can buy 5-10% of the float, then I think that there's a possibility that it persists and actually does really well for the first couple months. And then when you get that lockup period ending for, say, some of those people that were invested, late rounds or what have you, then I think you'll see a large sell-off, because I just think that it's just too much for 1.75 trillion to come onto the market and not have some sort of liquidity events where you need to find a floor price for it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's eventually what's going to end up happening. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how much of that initial 1.75 trillion will be liquid on day one. Mm-hmm. That's the big question, to see whether or not it goes up or down immediately.
Now, just one quick follow-up. Do you think that, or I should say, what are the odds that it is artificially suppressed just for the talking point of just does that make sense? Where they intentionally don't release a lot of stock, knowing that it's going to cause it to run up, just so they have that extra like pump, to put it blunt.
I mean, isn't that what the lockup periods are for?
Like yes, but I'm talking almost like sarcastically restricted. You know what I mean? Like almost in a way that it's like it's going to. I don't know. I don't like. I hope nobody is taking this as like a possibility. Like I'm not saying this is like something to bet on at all. I'm just wondering if it isn't even a possibility. Is that like they intentionally only like really limit the amount of shares, just knowing that it's going to go from 1.75 and everybody's going to, you know, fight to get in. It's going to cause it to rip, just so you have that talking point of like, not only was it the biggest IPO, but it went up in, you know, because they definitely don't want that talking point of like, yeah, it was the largest IPO and then it absolutely tanked because it was, you know.
I mean, like, to what you guys are saying, like the tanking can also happen like when the lockup period expires. Like if you remember when Rocket Lab IPO'd, it went first up to 24 and then it took some months and it came back to 10 and then it took some years when it went down to 4, you know.
So
like
to give people some understanding, so I misspoke to be specific on the terminology. The float will always be 100%, right? So there's always going to be a float, but the total equity is what you're looking at. So initially that float will be that 3% that we're talking about. Then the total equity will be the other 97%. That will have a lockup period of anywhere between 90 and 180 days. And how that works is what's going to be the tough part.
And I think that once if what Matt is saying plays out, that a lot of people want to sell at the same time, and suddenly there's like hundreds of billions of dollars that want to sell SpaceX, the stock price gets depressed, and I think that might be a very interesting buying opportunity.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I think it's a lot's up for grabs, right? Because there's the S1 hasn't even been filed yet, and people are saying that it's going to go public here in the next 90 days, and so I don't believe it until I see an S1, and then I think the clock will tick. That it'll be 60 to 90 days after that, but yeah, I'm very curious to see what actually comes up out of the S1.
Okay, so just wait for the S1, I guess. That's when we will be smarter.
It'll be interesting.
Cool. That was all the news for this week. I guess maybe one last news to speak about is like, how do you guys think you guys know how like in COVID everybody became like a COVID specialist, and then, you know, in 2022 everybody became inflation specialists, and now everybody is a Hormuz Strait specialist and Iran specialist. So this is the Persia Weekly part of the podcast. So how do you guys think that situation is going, and how will it affect the stock market in general and Rocket Lab? Any predictions on that?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't. How do I say this? I'd probably be more keen to buying if I wasn't so concerned about an escalation in either direction, whether that's, you know, regardless of whose soil it's on. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like the collective world is just kind of holding their breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. So I don't know. Interesting either way. But what do you guys think?
Matt, you think you will be handling after the Venezuelan oil? Are you going over to handle some Iranian oil?
Has not been discussed yet, but I don't think that's the case at this point. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to see anybody getting injured. I think it's tough in that respect, but I don't know. It goes back to what we experienced in Iraq, right? Like, you're kind of dealing against a religion and a religious regime versus an entire nation, if that makes sense. So I've met many Persians and Iranians that love Americans, love America, but they have a very different view than their government. And so I don't think this is ever a war on the Iranian people and Iran as a country as a whole, rather than specifically, I would almost relate it to like Afghanistan and the Taliban, if that makes sense. So you were fighting against the Taliban, you weren't necessarily fighting against the entire country of Afghanistan and in search of Osama bin Laden and his terrorist organization. So it's almost the same sort of view. But overall, I mean, we've seen a lot of destruction, and I'm curious to see what that does to the market. To me, this is just a blip, will there be an opportunity for buying? Possibly. I don't really foresee the market going up massively until something like this is resolved. So, but at the same time, I think that in a 10-year time horizon, this shouldn't be a reason for you not to invest. So I guess it really just depends on if you're a trader, 1 year sort of time horizon sort of person or what. But to me, slow and steady always wins the race. And I'm just trying to buy stocks when I can, because who knows, maybe the stock market drops 10% and I have the ability to buy 10% cheaper. But in the grand scheme of things, is that really going to make a difference when Rocket Lab's trading at $400 a share? I don't think the answer is yes. I mean, would it be nice to have 10% more shares on whatever I just purchased? Then sure. But, I can't time it. What I can guarantee is that the price is what it is today. And I still think that this is going to show, especially if there's unfortunately an attack on mainland U.S., the need for missile defense and Golden Dome and many of those other things. So, depending on what happens, obviously, I look 10 years out. I think this is a blip on the radar for the U.S. economy and the stock market. But depending on what happens, I think it could be a potential positive for Rocket Lab. And if this persists for another 3 to 6 months, and if there's an attack directly on European or American soil.
All right. I watched the All In podcast and they discussed it in very much detail, and they were basically saying that it looks like if the war continues for a prolonged time, then it's going to be very bad for Trump's popularity numbers and the midterms, both for inflation and whatever. And then David Sachs was there, and then he said, yeah, like Trump is not into regime change, and he really likes these quick wars, and so he will find a way to call it the day and get out. And I kind of feel like that is a correct analysis. I would be surprised if this was, as you said, if this would be more than a blip on the radar. I would be surprised, but at this point, no one knows. War is messy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll probably be, I mean, hopefully it's pretty quick. Like, hopefully we're kind of already at the tail end of things and it doesn't escalate from here, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I think it's tough because you're fighting a religion to some of these religious leaders. And I'm not saying, it's not an attack on Islam by any means. It's an attack on a specific sect of folks that have power in Iran. So that is what is, I think, most difficult is, there always has to be a supreme leader for them. And it's not just as easy as this thing, okay, you killed one leader, we're done. It's more of like the religion needs to continue. And so it's different than I think most wars and how people typically think country versus country, right? Not necessarily country versus religion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, you don't look at this as religion versus religion at all.
No, I think which religion?
I guess are you talking about how is Israel rolled up in this and stuff like that, or
yeah.
I'm not smart enough to know.
Okay.
Sorry. Geopolitics isn't my expertise. It very well could be. I don't know enough. I could also, I said this on a previous podcast, so I'm happy to say it here. I also think that this, maybe you're right, maybe it is religious. I don't know in terms of religion versus religion instead of just the US versus, but I think it also could play a part in is that Iran exports a large majority of their oil to China. And what you're now seeing is two links to Venezuela, gets their, because I think everyone thinks like, and I didn't explain this well during the whole Venezuela conflict, and I could be totally wrong as well on this. So, I'm okay talking and being wrong, but I think initially when people were like, I think initially when people thought we were going to Venezuela, it was to like immediately start producing the oil for ourselves and bring it home, and like all 2 million barrels a day that Venezuela is immediately going to start being made by Americans, and like our oil price is going to go to zero here in the US and, stuff like that. I don't think that was ever the case. I think it was more of a proxy to like, well, China was getting exported a lot of oil from Venezuela to pay back debt. So instead of them buying bonds, they were buying oil from Venezuela as a form of debt payment. And I think you're also seeing the same thing with Iran. It's like, I don't think we're going to Iran and invading Iran for cheap natural gas or for, because Iran does have a very large gas reserves to which they sell to Pakistan and as well as used for their 90 million people and others. But I think it's more the disruption of potentially the supply chain of oil to the Chinese. And so I'm very curious to see how this eventually gets rolled up, because now you've attacked two major exporters to import oil to China, and Trump is apparently at the end of the month going to China for a couple of days. So I'm curious how this proceeds into those talks. That's a speculation, and it has no bounds to be true. It's just a thought. So yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say that I think that could be an avenue for it as well.
I think it's a very good thought. I also saw, I think Tom Nash did a very good video about like explaining the relationship with, China, Venezuela, and Iran. And
oh, does he? I love Tom. Tom's great.
He actually did a very good job. I posted the video on Twitter and said that this is really worth a watch, and he even answered like, thank you so much for like promoting the video. But yeah, it's really worth a watch. And I'm just gonna say something that I just forgot now. My God, it's very late for me here.
Yeah,
it's gonna come to me. It was something like quite important. Well, yeah, like what I wanted to say is also like, if the US was ever going to do something, because like all the proxies of Iran got weakened, like Hamas is practically destroyed, the Hezbollah was pushed back, Syria had a new government, which is like more friendly to the US, and basically like there was huge protests inside of Iran. So like if there was ever going to be any action taken on Iran, like now was the time. So maybe Trump took a gamble. He thought that it was like to he looked at his, like what's the risk, what can I gain on it, and it was too much tilting on the, like we gain a lot on this side. But yeah.
One thing that I wanted to bring up as well is I was just looking at some of the net debt at Rocket Lab right now, and maybe we did discuss this and I just completely blocked my memory from it, but it looks like from 3Q to 4Q, some of the capped call items were bought back. I'm not sure if you saw that in the 10Q or 10K, Scott, but I'll read aloud what came out from this most recent 10K. So the company's notes, the notes are the company's senior unsecured obligation, meaning the 355 million aggregate principal amount of 4.25% convertible senior notes due 2029. So unsecured obligations are an equal in right of payment with the company's existing or future senior unsecured indebtedness. To which, am I looking at the right thing? Oh, sorry, this shit, I had it earlier, but basically there was the original 355 million, and now it's been reduced to a certain number. I lost it. I don't know where it went.
Those
Sorry.
were my cover calls that were bought back, Matt.
Yeah?
You remember wrong. I just don't know why they talk about it in there.
Oh, here we go. Sorry for brain fart there. The company measures the fair value of its convertible senior notes on a quarterly basis for disclosure purposes. The company considers the fair value of its convertible senior notes as of December 31st, 2025 to be level 2 measurement due to the limited trading activity of the convertible senior notes. As of December, the net carrying amount of the convertible senior notes was $152 million, with an unauthorized and debt issuance cost of $3.259 million. So basically, the convertible value of the notes will now be $2.2 billion. The fair value was determined based off the closing trading price of the senior notes. So that's down from, let me read the last time, of $347 million as of September 30th, 2025, with an unamortized discount of the cost now being $7.9 million. And as of September 30th, 2025, the fair value of the convertible senior notes was $3.3 billion. So it looks like they used some of the cash that they've received at the ATM to potentially buy back some of those covered calls. And I'm curious if that's going to be something that persists. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
That is interesting.
Page 17. If you want to look more, Scott, you're better at this stuff than I am. So page 17 of the
10K.
10Q in 2020 3Q, and then for 4Q, page F26.
Sorry, say the page numbers again.
For the 3Q one,
yeah,
for September 2025, it was page 17.
Okay.
Yep. And then for 4Q this year, it was F26, which I'm not sure what the F stands for.
Cool. I'll have to take a look at that. It seems like they're being really, really responsible. I mean, like, I don't think it needs to be said at this point, but they just continue to show that once given capital, they just really are smart about it. And just kind of like I think being in the same ballpark as what you're saying, Matt, is just looking at like the net liquidity is, and granted they did a raise, but it went from, just north of 1 billion in Q3 to 1.1 billion. And with that, they brought their long-term borrowings, which includes the current installments and long-term. It went from, we'll call it 70 million down to 2 million between Q3 and Q4. So just kind of getting rid of that debt, keeping out liquidity. They're just in a very, I don't know, they just continue to be very, very fiscally responsive.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I stumbled across it was I was just like, when we were chatting, I've been using, Vince, I don't know if you want to share my tool really quick, but I was looking at my tool and I was like, there's no way that this debt went down that much. I was like, it's probably AI playing tricks, right? I always check whenever something looks awry. And basically I was like, well, let me check this out. And then I started noticing that. And so obviously total debt, for anybody that's kind of thinking, is the debt for the company and then minusing. So I think it's like net debt, but maybe this is just total debt. So I don't know. There's a difference between net debt and total debt. But I was surprised to see a large chunk going from 516 million in the third quarter to 254. And I was like, what the heck is that? And so, anyway, I was just like, let me investigate it. And that showed up. So I was like, oh, well. So I'm kind of curious if what other items have been paid off, because that accounts for some of it. But I'm not sure if they take a like mark-to-market view on let's just say the portion of the value of that total item. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, and by the way, the channel has a sponsor. The name of that sponsor is Probably AI, which is a new tool developed by none other than Real Math Money. And I don't know if you're releasing it publicly yet or not yet or not.
Yeah. So this is public now. I'm trying to get it monetized, but yeah, if anybody's interested, I just posted it in my chat. So
Cool.
if you see any issues, there's still tweaks and stuff I need to make. So if you see any issues, please let me know.
Awesome. All right, guys, it's been a great episode. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, may your next week be amazing. Your sky stay blue and stock stay green. And I'll see everyone next week. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for
guys.
hosting, Vince.
Yeah. Ciao.
Take Vince's bro.